Hey guys, Ryan Stickjona here, the son of the Tuhon and Son gang. Today is a special show where I'm about to turn 30, so I asked my father, I'm like, hey, how'd you meet mom? And then we went off in some tangents. We talk about really cool origins of Kajukenbo, and then we go into a bunch of other stuff. So it's a long one today, but I promise you it's a good one, so take a listen. Here we go. You know what drives me nuts is when someone says, like, you're getting a text or a call, and you're like, I can't talk right now, and they're like, okay.
And then they continue.
And then they continue, or they message you back. And let's say it's a very sensitive situation, and they message you back, and they say, okay, cool. Was it really necessary to send that clarity? Thank you. It's cool. Fantastic. I could go on with my life. All right.
Right, but the problem is sometimes when you don't get that information, especially if it seems important to you to contact that person right away, if they don't at least say that, you think, well, maybe they just stopped talking. I got this new GPS system, and it's great, except for the fact that when it's giving you instructions and it says, you'll be driving straight for the next 25 kilometers. So you're driving for 25 kilometers. It's not saying anything, and you're wondering, has the battery died?
Yeah.
It doesn't give you any of these little catch-up things.
Kilometers.
Yeah. Well, even then, that's only 15 or so miles, but it's 15 or so miles. That's 15 or so minutes that you think to yourself, is this working? Am I going the wrong direction? I have done that before. I have gone the wrong direction. When I was driving to Las Vegas once with your mother, we left Los Angeles, we went on Highway 10, and you're supposed to make a turn up towards Las Vegas. And there was a lot of traffic, and so, you know, I was tired, and well, I missed that turnoff, and I think we were in Arizona, which is quite a bit farther along than that, when we realized that I had made the wrong turn, or should we say not made the right turn, and we were at this little place, and there was a sign saying Arizona State Border. Your mother was angry at me, so she got in the car and she drove all the way from this little place up, and she got there in record time, but probably would have been there sooner had I not been so believing of my ability to see a sign. So.
Yeah, so Dad, I'm about to be 30. I'm extremely depressed about it. And when I think about it, oh, way to start off strong. Welcome to Tuhon and Son.
I'm so depressed. I'm turning not even half my dad's age.
Yeah, I still have my whole life ahead of me. I'm so sad. Anyway, Dad, it just dawned on me that by the time you were 30, you already had, what, 1 or 2 kids?
One. I had you when I was 31, so about a year later.
Gee whiz. Yeah, so tell me a little bit about that mindset. Like, all right, so you're a young guy in your 20s, and you're working on the road, and then this happens. Like, how does the world change? Because comparatively, I like to think of myself as a nice, semi-responsible guy, but comparatively, I'm a schmuck compared to who you were, because you man down. You said, no, I got to raise this baby.
Well, no, actually, I guess I had a fairly carefree existence as far as that's concerned. I was on the road for a few years. That was like 75 to 77, 78. In 78, I realized that, excuse me, that it was time to get my act together, because it's one thing, you can act, I won't say irresponsibly, but you can act independently when you don't have anybody but yourself to think about. But as soon as you have somebody else to think about, you have to start doing things that will positively impact them. So I got a job, a regular job, you know, one of those, I won't call it 9 to 5 because it wasn't really 9 to 5, but it was a job. And I started working in a bar as a doorman on Friday and Saturday nights, which ironically is, you actually don't make any money when you do it that way, because when you're on the books, they're giving you maybe, you know, this is the 70s, so you're making maybe $20, $25 an hour, but you're working for 6 or 7 hours, and so you've got maybe $200 in your, you know, on that check. And at the end of the week, so you basically, when you figure everything out, you know, in those days, if you take the check, then you just pay the money at the end of the year in taxes. So you just give the whole thing to the government, and then you don't even realize that you're wasting your time, because you may as well not have worked at all.
Mm. So when exactly did this? I love my sister, but you know, I'm sure you and Mom weren't saying before, like, let's have kids. Now's the time. We have so much money.
No, it was just, we were together for, I guess, we started seeing each other in August 25th, 1977. Mm-hmm. I was still working on the road. It was a show at the Olympic Stadium. It was Emerson, Lake and Palmer. And so we started seeing each other. She moved in with me a short while after. And
let's have a little bit. How did you meet Mom? How I met your mother? Like, I'll be the Barney in this.
Okay,
story.
well, in this situation, I was working for a band called Mahogany Rush, and we were recording an album at a place called Studio Tempo, which in those days was located on McGill College, where Montreal Trust Building is now. Anyway, that was a string of sort of like buildings, and in there was a studio, and it was Studio Tempo. Eventually, that moved to Point St. Charles. I was in there. Ruth was and her friend Barbara came to see somebody. Barbara was going out with the bass player Paul Harwood, and they came in. I guess we met. We started talking, and nothing came of it. We weren't, whatever was happening. I was a very shy person. She was busy with her own things in her life, and we went our opposite directions.
Mom was a loud talking redhead with lots of sass.
Anyway, I guess.
And you were perfect to be her sidekick. That doesn't say anything.
Anyway, a year or so later, I bumped into her walking down the street, and she had just gone through a messy breakup, and she, we were both as happens in a situation like this, we had both sworn off situations that preceded this. I think I'd come out of something that was somewhat negative, and she'd come out of something that was somewhat negative, and together, we just started talking, and then one thing led to another, and then we started seeing each other. So,
you are just full of romance or romantic details, Dad.
Well, romantic details tend to put your foot in your mouth, and then you realize that maybe you said more than you wanted to say. So, when somebody else isn't really part of the discussion and they hear the hair-raising details about how you think you met, it's one of those like, what? Sort of like that show that we are now paraphrasing. Supposedly everybody had been going on since this show lasted 5 or 6 years, and now 8 years. Okay, that lasted 8 years. Syndication heaven, I guess. And at the end, how he met his mother, or how they met the mother.
Oh, spoilers, everybody! If you haven't seen this, literally. Fast forward at least 15 seconds.
Well, no, I'm not going to say how they met because I have no idea. But I'm told by everybody that it was a big lunch bag letdown. So,
okay.
So anyway, how you met your mother? Say, okay.
Well, everyone's pissed off at the end of Lost. I haven't even seen Lost. I haven't seen a single episode.
I saw one episode, the very last one.
And it's notoriously known for this last episode pissing everybody off. So, and The Sopranos, another show that ending pissed everybody off.
Well, also years ago there was a show, kind of a nighttime soap opera called Dallas, and it's funny because they had a whole episode, a whole season that was all these things they'd put in these new plot twists. And the first season, or first show of the next season, was him waking up from a dream, because it was all a dream.
I think that's the show that became synonymous with the expression, it better not have been all just a dream, right? Well, I guess it's The Wizard of Oz and Dallas.
Well, I mean, and also there's years before the Happy Days, they had Fonzie jumping a shark. Okay. And that was that kind of absurd thing. When things got to the point where you have nothing left to say, how do you say it?
Yeah.
Well, absurdity is no better. I mean, people have expectations that don't necessarily meet creativity.
All right, so back to you banging Mom. Okay. All right, so you guys meet. She's loud, you're shy, so we got a catch and release type thing. She throws words and your ears just absorb them. And
anyway, so we started seeing each other, and a little while later she moved in, and then things evolved. And then your mother used to smoke and drink. I won't say she wasn't a drunk, but she could drink and she could smoke, and she did. As upon hearing that she was pregnant, literally that day she stopped cold. I mean, this is normally considered the most difficult thing to do, but because she smoked quite a bit. She started smoking when she was pretty young, and so when she stopped smoking, literally on the day, I was very impressed. I was quite, and she has not ever started again. So.
Gee whiz. I just drink. Maybe I should get pregnant, you know? I don't drink that much, though. It's a lack of dedication and a form of laziness. The idea of having to drink alcohol every single day, that's a lot of commitment, Dad.
Yeah, well, yeah, but she'd worked in a bar. I mean, she was a waitress there for a while, and you know, that type of thing. You know, it's not so much what you do; it's just that there's nothing else to do. Sometimes in a small, quiet bar, your clients come up. You know, the only way they want to drink, they're not there buy it with anybody else, so they want to buy you a drink, and then they buy you a drink, and then somebody else comes in and sees you have a drink, and so buys you another drink, and sometimes it becomes like I don't know, like a whirlwind.
I drink a lot when they're paid for. Yeah, definitely. I don't say no to the free ones.
Well, but that's the thing. So anyway, she just stopped drinking completely. She became a total health person. She ate well. She didn't. She did all that stuff. She, you know, she became quite the perfect host for your sister. So
I like how you say host for the. What do you call it? For the black mass that will raise Sarita from the womb. There was a lot of candles and a guy with a goat's head. Okay, so you're doing martial arts around this time, right? Like,
yeah, I started a long time before she met it.
Yeah, so, well, obviously, but did the martial arts take a backdoor during these 9 months of...
Actually, no. One would think that, but I have to be very honest. I mean, as together as we am. I've always sort of been somewhat selfish when it comes to that stuff, because I think that even though I would, you know, when I was on the road, I didn't get to practice as much as I would have liked. But that being on the road part sort of took its own life. You really can't do things like that. You can't really go places and train because, I mean, when you're in the middle of someplace in Iowa at a Holiday Inn and you're kind of checking on the truck that has all the equipment in it and you're getting ready to go up to some gig, you know, drive 500 miles to the next town, you know, the idea of going out and, you know, finding a school that would accept you to train there, worried because, I mean, people, you know, when people show up at your door, nowadays, everybody trains everywhere. In those days, it was less likely to happen. Yeah. I mean, some people did train, but most of the time, if you ever showed up anywhere, it kind of like one of those things where there's this kind of feeling that, well, we have to check this guy out. And the only way to check him out is by testing him. How do you test him? You try to beat him up. And so there's that type of thing. I mean, it happens now in things like jiu-jitsu schools. You know, if you happen to show up at a jiu-jitsu school, in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you can, you know, pay to get in or whatever. Some schools won't let you train there, but if you're cool about everything, they'll
say you're all right, LaRusso.
Well, sort of, but they won't try to kill you. But there's always going to be this sense of, we want our top guy to do you in so that you know that you've come to a school that's really good, and so that when you leave and tell your own school, boy, these guys are really good, as opposed to, man, I kicked their ass. Which is never a cool thing to say anyway, but doesn't stop people from saying it.
So how does this relate to the question of what were you doing when you knocked up Mom with your fists?
I didn't knock her up with my fists.
No, of course not.
Come on. No. Anyway, so what...
you did it with your fighting spirit.
Anyway,
that's what we'll call it.
Okay. Anyway, so what happened? I came off the road. Basically, I mean, it was a combination of things. When I left the road, you realize after a while that being on the road is a matter of fortune, in that you have to know somebody who wants to have you on the road. I mean, you could be working for bands, but in a lot of cases, unless you're working for a really big band and you're a pretty consistent worker for that big band, invariably you're going to, if you're working for a band, let's say a band is pretty big now, let's say Aerosmith, the guys who work for them are probably the same guys who've worked for them since they were like wherever, you know, the guitar tech for Joe Perry and, Brad Whitford and the drum tech, all those guys, they've probably been with those guys for as long as, you know, they've been a band. I mean, maybe certain situations have changed, but by and large that. But even then, when a band is off the road, they're not going to pay their guys their road salary to hang around. And I mean, you know, for how many years has Aerosmith not been on the road? I mean, they go on the road, they do a really big tour, and then they go off. And I mean, that's the way of big bands nowadays. You know, they'll do a big tour. I mean, friend of mine, Barry Danilan. He's a trumpet player in New York, and he was on the Bruce Springsteen tour as one of those guys behind him in the horn section. And he worked consistently for the last couple of years. I mean, just on and on and on and on. But when they're off the road, they're off the road. I mean, Bruce Springsteen does not have a death wish. He does not want to be on the road 365 days of the year. He wants to be home, but he wanted to do this tour. So they do the tour, boom. And that's the way of a lot of bands. So most bands do it 3, 4, maybe 5 months, and then they get burnt out and they have to recharge. But they're not going to pay people to recharge them. And I was in that situation. And so I came home. When I came home, it was like, okay, found a job. A friend of mine that I had been working with Mahogany Rush years before was working at the Sam the Record Man stores. And I started working there as a guy on the floor. I started working in their tape department, and I worked my way up to, I think, either warehouse or operations manager for their East Coast group. And then and I was working there until after Serena was born.
Well, speaking of her being born, though, can you remember the moment that you got the news from Mom? Like, how did she tell you?
Well, I think it was just like that. I came home, and it was like, I was at the doctor's. I'm pregnant.
And the words "I'm pregnant," I've had these moments where someone has said something, not "I'm pregnant." Unfortunately, something much worse. Unfortunately, something much worse. You were there, and this was 10 years ago, a couple of months ago. So it's been fine since 10 years, so that's good. But I've experienced this. This word is just like everything turns into the movie 300. Boom, 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 and you're going in slow motion.
In those days, the idea of having a kid was really shocking to me. It was like, you have that slack-jawed, open-mouthed amazement, like, oh my God, how can I get out of this? And of course, I mean, because that's your first reaction. I mean, that wasn't the plan. That was never the plan. But like anything, you have to adjust and adapt. And so I adjusted and I adapted, and we sort of went, okay. And so we made plans to go ahead. I mean, I'm not saying we did that in like 30 seconds after I was shocked with the news. It was, we discussed options. What do we do? What do I do? What do you do? What is there to do? Mm-hmm. And, the decision was made that, yep, we're doing it. We went, bang, we're continuing on. And we continued.
Yeah, that's understandable. That's very honest and stuff because, like, once again, how old were you? You're like 27?
Not even.
Oh, God, you're 26. There we go.
Okay, well, no, it was 19...
Well, when you say not even, there's only so many numbers.
No, 79. I'm just thinking 79. I'm just thinking it was August of... Or it was spring of 79. I was 24, I think.
All right. You sound like Porky Pig there for a second.
Well, no, I was just doing a little bit of mental...
24. Okay, so that's how you find out. And getting back to it, though, and you are the master of tangents. The same thing with me. I could be telling you, like, how I made toast that morning, and I can fit in, like, what happened on The Simpsons 7 years earlier. But you're saying, like, you didn't take a backseat to martial arts during Mom's pregnancy.
No, actually, I see. Well, I continued training. My teacher had basically semi-retired. I mean, he hadn't officially retired, but he'd semi-retired. But there were classes going on, and the people in our class, I did this Kajukenbo style, this Kajukenbo martial art, and we were continuing training. We did, there's training 3, 4, 5 days a week. I went before because before Ruth was pregnant. I mean, she would be working in a bar most evenings, so it wasn't like I was sitting around, going to sit at home watch TV. I didn't even own a TV. Actually, I only owned a TV. It was very funny.
Used to draw each other pictures and
no. But I grew up out in Hudson, and my mother didn't think much of television, so we had a black and white television set. I mean, I would go to friends of mine's houses in the 70s who would have, actually in the 60s, it was 60s. In the 60s, I would go to friends of mine's houses, and they would have, color TVs, because I think it was in the 60s that CFCF in Montreal actually started broadcasting in color, and it was a big deal. No, you laugh, but it was
I know I'm laughing because it's just like, what were you doing when you were not the Mom?
I know, but you have to understand, you have to have backstory. I don't have backstory. Anyway.
You are Ted from How I Met Your Mother. That's how you turned that. You told me how you met Mom in 3 minutes, and he took 8 seasons of 23 episodes apiece of half-an-hour stories.
Anyway.
You are Ted.
Okay, so Well, I told you how I met her. But then you wanted backstory, and I gave you backstory anyway. So we did martial
backstory, front story, side story.
Anyway, no, but because of all these things, I didn't have a desire to watch TV because we never had one around. I mean, nowadays you have 8,000 channels and nothing's on. In those days we had 2 channels, both of them in black and white, and nothing was on then either. Anyway, so when I came to Montreal, the idea, and so when Ruth moved in with me, the first thing she did was rent a TV and get cable, which was a very big shock because I was like, what are we doing? What's this thing? And of course, you get drawn to it like a moth to a flame, right? Yeah. So anyway, but every evening there were classes, so I would go out to my Kajukenbo class, and I was training, and then I got the job, and then in between that, there was a building right next to our place, and the building was empty. It was owned by the company that I worked for, but they didn't do anything with it. The idea was they were going to expand in there, but they never did expand in there. But the building was still empty, and they still owned it. And so I borrowed the key, and I went in there, and with a friend of mine, we started training, and that's actually where I started doing Cali. I mean, I started doing Cali in '81, and I started doing that. So I got the job in, I think, 1978. Maybe 77, but probably 78. Then Ruth was announced she was pregnant. I guess, I mean, Serena was born in 79, but no, in August of 79. So September, October, November, I guess November, December. So I guess I found out maybe early January, February of 79.
Was there a lot of pressure to not maintain the martial arts stuff during those times?
Not really, because I mean, even though Ruth was pregnant and stopped drinking and smoking, she saw no reason why she would actually stop working in a bar until she had to.
Okay.
Because, there was, you make money. So, you can start, just to sit there and, veg on the sofa, there was no point.
With a big pregger belly, making people guilty and giving her more tips.
Well, there's that, but there's also the reality. Yeah, I do actually remember her seeing her with her slightly bulging stomach. But yeah, there was a.
That's my mom, folks. Yeah.
No, that's not. That's it's a cheap laugh, Ryan.
No, I know. No, the thing about mom and knowing you and knowing mom, there's this world that you guys existed in pre me and Serena that only your friends will really tell us about. And that's the interesting part. It's just like. I know, like, I've seen girls, like, pass out drunk on the floor and make out with 5 guys in a single night. And I'm like, dude, that's going to be someone's mom one day, And how is she going to tell all this? Is she going to be like in Back to the Future? Like, oh, I never sat in a car with a boy or kissed a boy. And then he goes back in time and she's like, a huge whore. So you never know.
And I never said no. There's no room in the car. What I wanted to do.
So let's talk. Let's talk about this. The delivery of Serena. Like, what was going through your head?
Well, actually, it's really funny because we didn't know. The ultrasound didn't show what sex Serena was, so it was going to be a surprise for us. So that was fine. So as soon as we get into the hospital, Ruth had what's it called, an obstetrician that so we knew that she was going to be, that Serena was breech, which meant she's turned around and she was going to have a cesarean, and the doctor knew this and booked his vacation accordingly.
Oh God!
So we get to the hospital. The doctor is not there. He's gone on vacation. It's kind of like, and. This was the date she knew she was going to be there. So
holy crap, that's what happened in the movie Knocked Up too.
Okay.
Wow.
Anyway, so we didn't have this doctor. So instead of having this doctor that she knew and with whom she discussed her pregnancy, we got the resident obstetrician who was by luck what they call a dinosaur, in that he only believed in, for example, the new way of delivering somebody by cesarean is by doing a horizontal cut across their lower abdomen called a bikini cut. Well, I guess that if you could hide it in a bikini. This guy decided that what he wanted to do was do a vertical cut, the old-fashioned way. And then he wanted to, much against Ruth's chart, Ruth is allergic to stainless steel. I think she's actually allergic to nickel, which is available in most every metal has nickel in it. So
yeah, she's also allergic to fake gold, so that sucks for you, Dan.
Yeah. Anyway, so
it's called the lie detector.
So anyway, she received what's it called? She received clips, like stainless steel clips instead of stitches. And so she did this. She had this, and her stomach was, of course, she woke up right after the operation or after the delivery, itching like crazy because so she'd do it, and then she found out, like, why did this guy not bother to even look at her chart?
Because he couldn't see it, Dad.
Well, very possibly.
Yeah, because you couldn't see it. It's like, what's this all small writing?
But it was funny because when you were born, and actually Ruth, I think, met the first obstetrician, on the road, and I was like, oh, you're pregnant again. I haven't seen you. And Ruth's going, yeah, and you won't, because if you've been a doctor, it doesn't take much for a doctor to say, hi, I've got a vacation coming. I'm going on that vacation. Your baby is expected at the same time. Sorry, can't make it. That would be an okay thing to say, but just. And then you find out your doctor's on vacation while you're on the middle of the ride to the hospital, or not even, and you have this local person, and all the people are going, oh, you're with, I don't remember the guy's name. Yeah. You're with Doctor such and such. Oh, he does it the old way, which meant, because in the new way, if you do this bikini cut, if the next child is, settled properly, i.e. not breached, or not with the head down, not the head up, then you can deliver it naturally. Yeah. But you can't do that if they've vertically cut you. That's it. That's what you have to do every time.
Yeah. All right.
So anyway, we went into the hospital, and this nurse came up and said, "Oh, look at it! I can tell it's going to be a nice big boy." So you don't have any sense of expectation.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, when a nurse, purportedly somebody who has information that you never have, says it's a boy, you go, okay, it's a boy. You don't know. You don't
take her out back and teach him how to throw and jump kick, and we're gonna go fishing.
But it was just funny because I was sort of, I was waiting for the delivery to go out or to take place, and I went out and I bought a couple of stuffed animals, and I brought them back. And then the nurse came and said, you have a 6 pound, 9 ounce baby girl. And it was kind of like, that was the thing that was a bit of a shock.
Oh, were you not in the delivery room?
No, they don't let you in the delivery room when they're going to cut her.
Oh.
That's different.
Wow, that's an interesting factor that I don't think a lot of people know about, because cinematically it's always like, oh my hand.
Well, maybe nowadays they do that, but in those days, it's in concert with the idea that the guy was a dinosaur.
So you hear she's a girl, and what goes through your head? Bam.
Well, nothing goes through your head. But just you think, stupid nurse. Why did she say something like that when she didn't know? Why do people open their mouth and say something stupid when they have no way of knowing it's true or not? Because then you start developing a level of expectation. Now, I'd never expected Serena to be a boy, but when somebody says it's a boy, what are you supposed to say? Liar, lie,
liar, lies. It's okay. So let's talk about the tender moment. You see your daughter for the first time. What happened?
She was awesome. It's like you see this bundle of joy, and you realize that you are at least 50% part of its creation. It's amazing. It's and they're really so small. Babies will grow really quickly. So whenever they show pictures of,
I think I've seen a picture of you holding Serena. She's tiny.
Yeah, exactly.
You had big hair.
I had big hair, and she had small hands. I had and big hands, and
comparatively, your head to her was huge.
It's okay. I wasn't hungry, so
yeah. Oh boy. Okay, so adjusting the life of the baby and training, like this, having a baby affect the training. Like, I know you never stopped, and that's kind of like why you are where you are today. But was there ever this kind of like pressure? It's just like, I gotta do this, I gotta do this.
No, actually, Ruth was always very close to her mother, but she became even closer. And her mother was an extremely big help. She was there, if not every day, just seemed to be every day, but not in an oppressive, like, mother-in-law way. She was there to help. She was there. She just contributed, to. And in those days, it's very funny. Imagine Ruth had a perm that instead of her straight hair that she has now, she had this massive curls, and so she looked a bit like a
a massive red perm. I just like to say that too.
Yeah, well, she had this massive red perm, and she before that point she had a Cocker Spaniel. And
it's a hard enough life.
Anyway, she looked like a bit like a Cocker Spaniel, and I never ceased to mention it. So she and her mother really bonded a lot. We lived in a flat on St. Antoine Street, just near Green Avenue, and Yeah, I mean, nowadays, of course, we all, she was young and in shape. So we had it was one of those walk-up flats. So it was like one bunch of stairs going up to the door. And then once you get past the door, another bunch of stairs going up to the third floor.
Yikes.
So, yeah. So Ruth would do this regularly with Serena and the baby, or Serena, the baby, and the, what's it called?
The carrier.
And the pram,
Yeah.
the baby carriage. So it was, needless to say, she was rather happy when we moved.
Yeah, and that area wasn't St. Henry, Griffintown, all of it. It's much more.
It's more genteel now.
Yeah, like back then, I heard it was pretty rough.
Well, I mean, how can I say this? I was paying $80 a month rent, so you can just imagine.
Holy shit!
I had a 7.5 room apartment, and I started paying $80 a month for it. And it went up to, I think, $120 eventually. But so you can just imagine it was not a very expensive place.
No, wow.
Mind you, hey, let's put everything in perspective. A week's salary in those days was $60.
Okay, so
Anyway.
fast forward a couple of years. You've adjusted. You're like, okay, I had the kid. I'm still doing the martial arts and stuff. And good on mom for not being like, quit martial arts.
Well, around that same time, when I met your mother, a guy, you have to understand, Kajukenbo is an art that was created in Hawaii. Most of the people practicing it had a Hawaiian connection. And so there were a lot of Hawaiian people, or people with a Hawaiian connection, who had moved to the mainland, i.e. the San Francisco area was very popular for Kajukenbo. And also they migrated, let's say, as far north as Seattle and as far south as San Diego. But generally, the West Coast. Some people had gone into Texas, and basically wherever there was a American military base, and one of those people would move there and set up shop and eventually retire there, that would become a Kajukenbo place. So that's sort of how things worked. Or people would leave. There are some people who trained in Hawaii while in the military and then went home someplace on the mainland and then settled there.
Just like to say, it's like when people think of Hawaii, they think of like Elvis wearing a grass skirt, going, but Hawaii is like, for them to have to create Kajukenbo, you must imagine that there's some parts of Hawaii that the little yuppie tourists don't realize is there.
Oh, yeah. Well, I have to understand. Until 1950, actually maybe 1950, yeah, until 1950, Hawaii was a territory. It was actually run by, if you look at the Hawaiian flag, it has American, red, white, and blue stripes, but it has a British flag in the top left-hand corner. Yeah. Why? Because before Hawaii received its independence, it was a British colony. It was founded, I think, by James Cook way back when, in the 1700s. No, founded, it was discovered by. But I knew Hawaiians already had discovered it before, but, that's the way Western Europeans think about things. Yeah. And so anyway, so they were there. The British were running things. They left Hawaii, I think, sometime in the 1800s, gave Hawaii its independence. And then some American missionaries / business people went in, took over the government, and asked the United States to take over. And then it became a United States territory until 1950. So Hawaii was the largest concentration west of San Francisco of airmen, Marines, soldiers, and Army, which is why in 1941 the Japanese attacked it, because it was a huge base. But when you have that many people, mostly males in those days, going around on Saturday night on leave and on what called on liberty, they would be going out looking for the local girls to hang out with and populate with. And so the locals...
To show them their fighting spirit.
To show them their fighting spirit, yes. And so they would, these guys would, they developed Kajukenbo because they wanted to have something that worked well against people who were professional soldiers. And so they, Kajukenbo was that thing.
It's like, hey, don't bang my sister. Wah! Yeah, pretty much.
Well, yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah. I would say that, yeah, that's pretty close.
Okay.
Or,
or something more politically correct.
Something more politically correct, yes. I wasn't there in those days, but I'm told that one of the original training methods would be they would train in the evening, and then when they wanted to field test some of their stuff, the one guy would have to bring his girlfriend and have to park her at some bar where there was a notorious amount of guys coming in, hitting on the locals. And he would have to, his girlfriend would be there, and some guy would invariably come up and try to hit on her. And the guy would have to come up and use the martial arts he'd been practicing to take this guy on.
Yikes.
And maybe his friends. I mean, maybe I don't know This is like, I'm being paraphrasing because, as I said, I wasn't there. And, generally we tend to, when we hear like really stories like that, we tend to kind of paraphrase them and fill in our own blanks.
Bill Banyan was 100 feet tall. He was.
Yeah, Tom Banyan.
Tom Banyan, whatever.
Yeah, but you see,
I don't know.
Bill Banyan.
I saw it on The Simpsons.
Anyway, but yeah, and he had a big blue bowl. Anyway, so
the big red bowl gives him wings.
Yeah, well, but Kajukenbo, Hawaii was a hot spot of martial arts technique. I mean, they've been doing martial arts. There's a Hawaiian national martial art, an old martial art from Hawaii called Lua. Well, everybody looks at the Hawaiians as being these really nice, peace-loving people. And they were war-loving. They until the time that the British arrived, they were fighting each other. I mean, one king was conquering another. All the islands had different kings. And there was a guy named King Kamehameha who actually was the guy who kind of suppressed all the other islands and brought them under one control under him. But up until that point, every little island, there's a whole bunch of islands in Hawaii, like Molokai and Kauai and Oahu. They had all their own people running things. And it was only as a result of this, after thousands of years of, I don't know how they did stuff, but they had developed their own martial art called Lua, which contained a lot of weapon fighting and a lot of empty hand fighting. And one of their things, they had a particular bone breaking, dislocating joint technique. Mormon missionaries who were there would write about things happened. They really liked a lot of history, and they would write how people would be found seemingly unharmed. But upon further examination, they realized that all of their joints had been dislocated and re-put in place. So that's kind of what they would be able to do. They had these great ripping techniques that would allow them to dislocate an arm or a shoulder. And, of course, that puts you in a great deal of pain. And then they would, after killing you, they would replace it and make it look like nothing had happened to you. And I guess in the days prior to autopsies, it was pretty scary. Anyway, so this is Kajukenbo. This is the art that I'm practicing. My teacher came from the west coast of California to Montreal via Vancouver, and we wanted to do this stuff. So this is the kind of stuff that I wanted to practice, and my teacher was there. But in 1977, this other guy by the name of Leonard Andresi, a good buddy of mine now, well, actually, he unfortunately passed away a few years ago, but he came to Montreal because he had been asked to come and start a school in Three Rivers, Quebec, which is not too far from Montreal. And it was great. So he came up, he and I became really good friends. And he started teaching me another variation of Kajukenbo. And so because of that, and Ruth was friendly with us too, it became more of a familial thing. That's what we would do. We would go up to Three Rivers and visit him. I mean, you came, Serena came. We would all go there to spend the weekend.
It's really good that it was a family thing, and it's not just kind of like, and there was always things to do. And a lot of other martial artists had children as well.
Yeah.
Like we would play with Leonard's kids and stuff. Yeah, that was a fascinating thing. I mean, I've been to a lot of places, but it seems that you traveled a lot less by the time I got old enough to actually appreciate these geographical marvels.
Well, a couple of times you came to California with us, and it was funny because you actually got to meet one of the Power Rangers on one of our trips.
Well, the stuntman of Jason David Frank, stuntman on the movie, which was still to me like the Kevin Bacon game, still just 2 degrees of separation. So
yeah. And by the way, the gentleman's name is Sonny Sisson. He's actually a buddy of mine on Facebook to this day. And
yeah, like I've been threatening, I want him to have him on the show, and I'm gonna geek out so hard. Like you're gonna have your hand in your face, and you're gonna shake it slowly and just go, "He's 30. He's 30." Yeah.
Anyway, so but that's kind of what we were doing. And so by having like that, it was just easier because, some people go bowling, some people do this. This is what I did. I did martial arts.
Yeah, and you could bring your family along and stuff like that. It's not like I like to investigate pine. Come on, kids, let's go. All right, so a couple years later, you're not street fighting dad, but you're a training dad. And you're paying the bills. And you got Serena and you got mom and you're adapted, then bam, I come. But I heard I was a little bit more planned. We're like, okay, we're all right.
There's a decision that we made that, yes, it was time to have another one.
What's it like?
You're the other one.
What's it like obtaining a child? I'm not going to go into hairy, disgusting detail. But what's it like just finding out mom's pregnant a second time with the knowledge it's just like, this is probably going to happen. And we're kind of trying to. Like, there's way less of a shock. And they're like, oh, I'm pregnant. And you're like, well, finally.
Well, yeah, but it's not so much that. But, you know, I mean, there's that certain reality that, you know, like, you know, that, you know, it's a lot more fun to practice than it is to actually, anyway.
Oh, my God.
See, you skirt the issue. I went right to the heart of it. The reality, no, but,
but Tuhon and son, it should be Tuhon and some guy. While son hides in his bedroom, cradling a pillow, rocking back and forth slowly.
Oh, it's not me. It's not me. Anyway, so, no, but yeah, we discussed it and we decided that it was time to have another one. And so,
I like to consider myself,
magically, under a cabbage leaf, we found you.
Yeah. I like to consider myself in this story the Terminator 2 of the pregnancies, you know, like bigger, better, and more expensive with CGI. Okay, so the second time you guys are a little more familiar with what to do with the process and all that stuff.
We also moved. We didn't have that second floor walk up by that time. We'd already moved out of. We'd moved 2 or 3 times.
2 or 3 times. Where to?
Well, we were on St. Antoine Street. Then we moved to an apartment on Grosvenor in Westmount, just above Sherbrooke.
Okay.
And it was funny because it was a very nice apartment.
Above Sherbrooke.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm like saying rent now must be ridiculous.
No, this was, you know, one would think, but it turns out that this was the apartment that used to be occupied by the janitor.
Okay.
And so the people in the building would come knocking at our door at all times of the day and night, asking us to fix things that had broken in their apartments. And we would say, well, we aren't the janitors. You should call the people who run the place. But that would never stop them because people have this perception that, you know, this is the janitor. I mean, it was on the ground floor, but just because it's on the ground floor doesn't necessarily. Well, anyway, we didn't stay there very long because one day we, you know, the people who weren't supposed to have dishwashers and washers in their apartments had them, and they would notoriously back up. And of course,
flood.
And well, it wasn't a flood, but they're in your bathroom. You'd see dirty, soapy water coming up backwards. So it would basically backwash up through our system. And so we realized that this was not going to get any better. People who perceive themselves as being privileged do not see that privilege ever being taken away from them. So therefore they continue doing what they're doing, figuring that, you know, it's kind of like global warming. Someone else's problem. Okay, no problem for me.
Hairspray.
Anyway, so we moved there. We actually moved into my mother's house for a month because we had another apartment, but it wasn't going to be available for a month. So we moved into my mother's house, and so we all 3 of us moved in, and then we moved to the corner of Lewis Avenue and St. Catherine Street, and we were there for about the next 20 years.
Okay. Yeah, wow.
And then...
all right, so unplanned. You're going to the delivery room. I remember there's a little amusing anecdote about the day I was born regarding a stuffed animal.
I'm sure there was lots of stuffed animals.
Come on, Dad. I already know this one.
So you tell me.
All right.
Check your facts.
Okay. Well, you guys knew I was going to be a boy, and maybe you're skeptical from the last nurse. I don't know. But Serena wanted to go pick out a stuffed animal for our new baby brother, and she picked up a pink one. And you're like, yeah, sure. These nurses don't know anything. At this point, it's like Russian roulette. So yeah, and then Mom told me she wasn't too pleased that the first thing you gave me was a pink elephant.
Well, you know, but you got to go with what you know. Your sister, you know, it was from her. She was not being politically incorrect. She was just being Serena. So
yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, that I think I also tried finding another hippopotamus because that's what we'd bought the first time out. We couldn't find one of those, but over the next few years, you got so many stuffed animals. It was, in fact, I even made a few of them for you. So
yeah, you did. Okay, so considering at the time of recording this, it's Tuesday. My birthday is on Friday, and
today's Wednesday.
Oh my God! So today's Wednesday. I'm born in 2 days. It's 30 years ago. This won't be online for at least an hour a week. But
happy birthday, Ryan.
Yeah, but let's think back. Let's go back in time. They're like, it's a boy, and they hand you over. What's the first thing you say?
Well, this time actually I was allowed to be in the delivery room.
Okay.
And
things have changed somewhat. It's just a rockin' 80s.
Yeah, it's a rockin' 80s. Anyway, I'm in the delivery room.
Was it the doctor your mom wanted?
Well, this one was, yes.
Okay.
And but it wasn't the same doctor as before. She made sure she wasn't going to be left anywhere unattended. Anyway, what happened is that they put me into a gown and had me set up. And then a little while later, after a couple of nurses asked me what to do, they realized that I looked more like a doctor. Now I don't look like a doctor, but they thought I looked like a doctor. So they gave me a different color gown so I wouldn't be mistaken for being a doctor, because the last thing they want to do is, doctor, get in here, forceps, you know. Anyway, so I was in the delivery room, and they, as you said, this time everything went very, very well. And
Terminator 2. Terminator 2.
Terminator 2. And you were born. I got to hold you. We hung out I was in there for a better part of the day. The first time, your mother was sedated and was asleep for a good 3 or 4 hours. So me not being there or being there was incidental. The baby was in the...
You took a bunch of pictures of her passed out. It looked like a weekend at Bernie's.
Yeah. Well, yeah. In those days, more cameras, more life. Yeah.
Yeah. They're like, okay, the second child's born. What did you think would happen in the next 30 years? Like, let's go from that day. Ryan's born.
Well, I thought at least one of my kids might want to do martial arts. That's actually very funny, because both of you, I started teaching kids classes, and both of you, within a short period of time, quit, and I was stuck teaching those kids classes. In fact, with Serena, it wasn't so bad because I was teaching out of my school, and nobody else wanted to do it, and so I just let it die a natural death after Serena had been there for about a week or so, and realized that the classes that I said were going to be 45 minutes were like 55 minutes or something like that. And she just sat down, and her squeaky little voice of a 4-year-old said, "No, I'm not doing this anymore." And that was it. I mean, she just didn't do it anymore. And I was teaching the kids at the Victoria Hall, and there was this one young man with whom you wanted to learn how to spar with. And when you sparred with him, you hit him once in the ribs, and he kind of fell to the floor. You turned to me and said, "Okay, Dad, that's it." And that was the last time you did martial arts.
Okay.
Anyway, but as a result of that, I was stuck teaching the city of Westmount for a few years. And I say stuck because it wasn't, they kept changing the parameters of the employment. And
did you get paid for that?
I got paid for it, but they kept changing that. One year I'd get paid a certain amount per hour, and next year they would cut it by $5 an hour, and I would go to them and say, "This isn't the same as I've got." "Oh, yes, it is," as if somehow I don't have a copy of my last year's payment. I mean, you get these payment slips.
Paperwork, man.
Right. So anyway, but they would make adjustments, but a few years later, it just became better for me not to have that, and I had to work. There was a job that I had in the East End, and I had to go there, and I had to leave early in the morning, and I didn't get back till the mid-afternoon, and I couldn't do that class anymore. So it was a perfect excuse to divest myself of something, but it didn't. We didn't die. That program to this day is still being run. Shout out to Jay Valley Ket. You're still running it. It's great. Anyway, as a result of that, things are great.
Oh, Jay's the one with the really big muscles, right? Yeah. I always remember Jay. I'm just like, good God, his arms are big. I'm like, why am I dressed as superheroes from comic book stores? It's like, why is Captain America so skinny? So
no CGI.
I just like to, now that's been 30 years, Dad, I just really like to apologize for my actions of 25 to 26 years ago. I was a tease. I would run around in little gis and stuff, punching, kicking, everything. And you must have been like, "Yes, my loins. He will follow in my footsteps like a kung fu movie. And if I am ever struck down, he can vow vengeance and know how to." And then I just liked watching Power Rangers a lot more than being a Power Ranger.
Well, actually, I had seen the negative results of a lot of fathers who had imposed their martial arts desires on their kids. A lot of fathers, really started, especially from the 50s and 60s, started pretty late. sometimes 25, 30 years old instead of 14 or 15 years old. And because of that, they had developed special expectations about their kids. And a lot of times these kids would be in class from the time they were 6 years old, and they were pushed. I mean, they had to be to class 4, 5, 6 days a week, and that was their after school activity. And by the time they were 16, these kids wanted to do drugs so badly, and they wanted to quit so badly. And a lot of them did. A lot of them just quit cold turkey. They had their, they were so sick and tired of being told what they could and couldn't do, what they should or shouldn't do, how they could train, where they could train with, and they were all forced to be the best kid in the class. That a lot of them just went, "Okay, Dad, thanks, bye."
All right, Dad. So Mom didn't squeeze out. So Mom didn't squeeze out too. She got him cut out of her, and not by your blade, thank God. And yeah, I don't know. Just to finish it all up. I'm sorry I got you stuck in those kids' classes. I really
no. I'm not complaining. I'm acknowledging it. I mean, the problem is, in the old days, if you wanted to be a kid in a class, your father had to recommend you to be in that class, or your uncle or somebody who knew the teacher had to recommend them, and then once recommended, you then had to show yourself as being something. And
you don't want to shame your uncle or anything.
Well, I mean, yeah, there was a whole lot of that too. But, you had to kind of indicate that you wanted to do it. They wouldn't just let you in. Say, hi, what do you want to do on Saturday mornings? I don't know, gymnastics, karate, badminton. It wasn't like that.
I resent that impression of me.
Anyway, but the reality is that things are different now. Things are very, very different now. Kids have a wide choice of a lot of things, and so most of the time, parents, you'd open the door and kids would run off and play, and now you can't do that because who would want to play with your kids? That's what we're worried about, and so you have to control their existence much more before they understand that not everybody who smiles at them has good intentions.
All right, Dad. So 30 years. Any regrets?
None whatsoever. Happy birthday.
Oh, thank you. All right, this is Tuhon and old son. And yeah. Oh. All right, thanks for listening to our episode of Tuhon and Son. You can find us on Spreaker. You could go to our YouTube page, but please visit the Gamma official website, Montreal Martial Arts at MontrealMartialArts.com, right?
MontrealMartialArts.com.
That's how long you've been doing this, that you can buy a domain name like that general, and no one else was like, well, it's already taken. It's like, nope. The internet existed for like 3 days. It's like Montreal Martial Arts, and then everyone else that week. Damn.
I thought that we had Gamma for a long time, and it turns out there's another gym in Toronto that calls itself Gamma.
Yeah, but you're a Jelena Academy of Mixed Martial Arts. Are they a Jelena Academy of Mixed Martial Arts? No, they just like the Hulk. Nah, just kidding. All the love to Gamma, wherever you guys are. I don't know. Yeah, it's not like Highlander. There doesn't have to be only one. No sword, no head beheading, no lightning. Thank you for listening to Tuhon and Son. I'm Ryan Stick Jelena.
And I'm Philip, I guess, Tuhon Jelena.
And thanks for listening to another episode. Thanks.
Thank you.